The date is March 29, 1987. The Pontiac Silverdome in Michigan is electric, packed to the rafters with over 93,000 screaming fans. Wrestlemania III is underway, and the arena falls silent as the bagpipes begin to wail. A lone figure emerges from the curtain, resplendent in his signature kilt. Rowdy, Roddy Piper, swaggers down the aisle with a cocky grin plastered across his face. The crowd's reaction is deafening, a raucousness of cheers that shake the very foundations of the Silverdome. It's this ability to connect with the audience, to make each person feel like they're part of the show, that sets Piper apart from his peers, and tonight it earns him a standing ovation. Climbing into the ring, Piper is a study in controlled chaos. But beneath the manic energy, there's a calculation to his movements. Every gesture, every expression is designed to elicit a specific reaction from the crowd. This is Roddy Piper at the height of his powers, a master manipulator with the audience firmly in the palm of his hand. The bell rings, and the contrast between Piper and his opponent, Adonis, couldn't be starker. Adonis, with his flamboyant attire and effeminate mannerisms, is the perfect foil for Piper's rugged machismo. In this moment, faced with a villain they despise even more than him, Piper finds himself cast in the unfamiliar role of fan favorite. The match itself is a clinic in old-school wrestling psychology. Piper and Adonis trade blows, each man working to wear down the other. The crowd hangs on every move, cheering Piper's successes and groaning at his setbacks. Despite being billed as Piper's retirement match, there's no sign of the hot rod slowing down. He moves with the agility of a man half his age, his years of experience evident in every counter and reversal. As the match progresses, the stakes become clear, as the loser will have his head shaved. The stipulation adds an extra layer of tension to an already charged atmosphere. The climax of the match is a masterpiece of storytelling. Adonis, thinking he has Piper beaten, prematurely celebrates, embracing his manager Jimmy Hart and readying himself to give Piper a haircut. But the hot rod is merely playing possum. With a touch of assistance from Brutus Beefcake, he is hit with a jolt of energy that sends the crowd into a frenzy, and Piper springs to life, trapping Adonis in his signature sleeper hold. The Silverdome erupts as Adonis's arms drop 3 times in a row. The referee calls for the bell, and Roddy Piper, the man they came to boo, is suddenly the conquering hero. But the drama isn't over yet. As Adonis lies disheveled in the ring, Beefcake grabs a pair of electric clippers. The crowd, realizing what's about to happen, reaches a new level of excitement. With gleeful abandon, Beefcake shaves Adonis's head, with Piper tossing clumps of hair into the air like confetti. It's a moment of pure catharsis, the culmination of months of build-up and animosity. As Piper menacingly holds a mirror up to put the final touches on Adonis's humiliation, the fans are once again on their feet, cheering for Piper with a fervor that would have seemed impossible just hours earlier. In this moment, Rowdy Roddy Piper cements his legacy as one of the greatest performers in wrestling history. He's transcended his role as a heel, demonstrating an ability to connect with the crowd that few others can match. As he soaks in the adulation of 93,000 fans, it's clear that Piper has played a crucial role in elevating professional wrestling from a niche spectacle to a mainstream phenomenon. But how did Roderick George Toombs, a skinny kid from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, become one of the most iconic figures in wrestling history? To understand the legend of Rowdy Roddy Piper, we need to turn back the clock and examine the crucible that forged this larger-than-life personality. Born on April 17, 1954, in Saskatoon, Roddy's early life was far from easy. The son of a railroad policeman, he grew up in a working-class family that struggled to make ends meet. As a teenager, Roddy found himself at odds with his father and eventually left home at the tender age of 15. It was a decision that would set him on the path to wrestling stardom, though the road would be long and arduous. Homeless and desperate, the young Toombs found work at local gyms and slept in hostels. It was during this time that he first encountered professional wrestling, and something about the spectacle spoke to him. Here was a world where outcasts could become heroes, where the underdog could rise to greatness through sheer force of will. He made his professional debut in the American Wrestling Association, squaring off against Larry Hennig, a seasoned veteran and the father of Curt Hennig. The match didn't last long, with Hennig destroying the upstart rookie, but something had awakened in Roddy. a hunger for the spotlight, and a determination to succeed in this brutal, unforgiving business. Over the next few years, Piper honed his craft in various promotions. He worked tirelessly, learning the intricacies of in-ring psychology and developing the persona that would make him famous. It was during this period that he adopted the nickname Rowdy and began wearing his iconic kilt, a nod to his Scottish heritage. By the mid-1970s, Piper had made a name for himself in the NWA territories, particularly in California and Oregon. His razor-sharp wit and ability to rile up crowds made him a natural heel, and he quickly became one of the most hated men in professional wrestling. But it wasn't until 1984 that Roddy would truly hit the big time. When Vince McMahon began his national expansion of the World Wrestling Federation, he knew he needed star power to make his vision a reality. Enter Roddy Piper. McMahon saw in Piper the perfect opposition for his company's new all-American hero, Hulk Hogan. The stage was set for one of the greatest feuds in wrestling history. After a brief stint in 1979, Piper made his second WWF debut in early 1984. Yet it was his work outside the ring that truly set him apart. McMahon gave Piper a segment called Piper's Pit, a talk show-style interview segment that soon became must-see TV. It was here that Roddy's gift for gab truly shone, as he verbally eviscerated his opponents and whipped crowds into a frenzy. One of the most infamous moments in Piper's Pit history occurred when Piper invited Jimmy Superfly Snuka onto the show, only to ambush him with racist taunts before smashing a coconut over his head. The incident was shocking, even by the standards of 1980s wrestling, and it established Piper's reputation as the most despicable villain in the business. As 1984 rolled into 1985, the feud between Piper and Hogan reached its boiling point. Their rivalry would culminate at the first ever WrestleMania on March 31st, 1985. In the main event, Piper teamed with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff to take on Hogan and Mr. T. The match was a spectacle unlike anything the wrestling world had seen before, featuring celebrities like Muhammad Ali and Liberace. Though Piper's team lost, his performance helped propel WrestleMania to the pinnacle of sports entertainment. Throughout 1985 and 1986, Piper remained at the top of the WWF card. His feud with Mr. T continued, leading to a boxing match at WrestleMania II on April 7, 1986. Once again, Piper found himself on the losing end, but his ability to draw heat from the crowd was unparalleled. He had become the villain that fans loved to hate, and his presence alone was enough to sell out arenas across the country, which brings us back to that fateful night in the Pontiac Silverdome. WrestleMania III was supposed to be Roddy Piper's swan song, his retirement match against Adonis. In a rare turn as a babyface, Piper emerged victorious, with Adonis's head being shaved to the delight of the crowd. It seemed like the perfect ending to an illustrious career. But the world of professional wrestling is rarely so simple. Despite his retirement, Piper couldn't stay away from the ring for long. He returned to the WWF in 1989, engaging in memorable feuds with the likes of Rick Rude and Bad News Brown. One of his most famous matches during this period was against Bad News at WrestleMania VI on April 1, 1990. The bout ended in a double countout, but it's remembered for Piper painting half his body black in a misguided attempt to mock his African-American opponent. As the 1990s progressed, Piper's role in the Federation began to change. He transitioned into more of a part-time performer and occasional authority figure. He had a memorable run as interim WWF president in 1996, feuding with Goldust in a series of increasingly outrageous segments. Their Hollywood backlot brawl at WrestleMania 12 on March 31st, 1996, was a cinematic spectacle that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in a wrestling match. Despite his reduced in-ring schedule, Piper remained a vital part of WWF programming throughout the decade. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2005, a well-deserved recognition of his contributions to the industry. However, behind the scenes, all was not well with the Hot Scot. In a revealing HBO Real Sports interview conducted in 2003, Piper made a stark prediction, stating that he was not going to make 65, citing his poor health and the toll that years of hard living had taken on his body. Even more troubling was his admission that he had returned to the WWE because he couldn't access his pension fund until reaching the age of 65. It was a sobering reminder of the harsh realities faced by many professional wrestlers, even those who had reached the pinnacle of the industry. Piper's financial struggles were indicative of a larger problem within professional wrestling. Despite helping to build the WWF into a global entertainment juggernaut, many wrestlers of his era found themselves struggling to make ends meet in their later years, with little in the way of a safety net for those who had given their bodies to the business. Diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in late 2006, Roddy Piper completed his radiation therapy on January 15, 2007, demonstrating the same tenacity in his health battle that he had shown throughout his wrestling career. Yet 8 years later, on July 31, 2015, the wrestling world was shocked by the news of Roddy Piper's passing. He had died in his sleep at the age of 61, 4 years shy of the age he had predicted he wouldn't reach. The death certificate cited cardiopulmonary arrest caused by hypertension, listing a pulmonary embolism as a contributing factor, which was brought on by years of wear and tear on his body. His death sparked renewed discussions about the need for better support systems for retired wrestlers and the long-term health effects of a career in the ring. Looking back on Roddy Piper's career, it's impossible to overstate his impact on professional wrestling. He was a key figure in the rock and wrestling connection that helped bring the WWF to mainstream attention in the 1980s. His feud with Hulk Hogan was the engine that drove the company's initial expansion. Beyond his in-ring exploits, Piper's influence extended to the world of pop culture. He starred in John Carpenter's cult classic film They Live in 1988, delivering the iconic line, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum." His performance in the film showcased his natural charisma and hinted at the acting career that might have been, had wrestling not been his primary focus. Piper was a master of the microphone, capable of inciting riots with his words alone. His Piper's Pit segments set the standard for wrestling talk shows, and his ability to improvise on the mic was legendary. Stories abound of Piper going off-script during live broadcasts, keeping his opponents and even his own allies on their toes. But perhaps Piper's greatest contribution to the business was his understanding of what it meant to be a heel. In an era when many bad guys were content to simply cheat and act cowardly, Piper brought a complexity to his villainous persona. He was brash and arrogant, yes, but he was also funny and, at times, even relatable. He understood that the best villains are those who believe themselves to be the heroes of their own stories. In the end, Rowdy Roddy Piper was a true original, a larger-than-life personality who left an indelible mark on the world of professional wrestling. He was also a devoted family man. His marriage to Kitty Jo Dittrich lasted from 1982 until his passing in 2015, during which time they raised 4 children. His wit, his magnetism, and his unmatched ability to connect with an audience ensured that he would never be forgotten. In a business built on colossal characters, few loomed larger than the Hot Scot from Saskatoon. May he rest in peace.